we would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and support the recognition of traditional Aboriginal law across the nation. We pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging on this land. Hello, I am Jenna Chanel Hayes and this is the Loving Podcast. Sharing transparent and loving friendships that open your mind to new ideas and experiences, new perspectives and new ways of being in the world is one of my favourite things about being human. As with all of my guests on this show, today's guest is an absolute jewel. She has a voice like velvet and is one of the most soulful spoken word poets you'll ever have the pleasure of listening to. She is also an actress, and most recently, her fast evolving path has led her to become the co-director and co-CEO of Western Edge Youth Arts. Her name is Tariro Mavondo. Hey T, how are you going?
Hey Jen. Yeah, thanks for having me.
You are so welcome. I really felt like it was so important to have you on this podcast because the conversations that we have shared since we met are really important conversations to have. And I think that they should be conversations that we're having on a broader scale. Me as a white woman, a white Australian, and you as a black woman, a black Australian, we've lived two very different experiences through our life. And it's those differences, the perspectives that each of us have that make our conversations so enlightening. You know, I think in sharing a friendship with you and learning about you and hearing your opinions and your perspectives, it's only given me much deeper understanding of how a black woman exists in not only this country but around the world. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. And just as an extension of that, which is beautiful, I'd just like to just build on that piece about me being a black woman. Like I'm a black settler woman, not from these lands. So I kind of exist in that intersection. I'd like to just also do an acknowledgement to these particular countries of the Irawa people and just like pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and also to kind of name my positionality that I came through colonial channels and I am complicit in First Nation people's oppression, and I'd like to extend my solidarity and allyship as they seek sovereignty from colonisation as well. It feels super important to just really announce my position and name the complicated nature of where we exist in this landscape. For me, it's about nuance, right? Like I feel like no matter where you're positioned in terms of this kind of racial hierarchy, there's nuance. Like I'm a black woman, sure. What does that actually mean when we unpack that?
Yeah.
I come from a really privileged background in terms of my ancestors. I come from a part of the country in Zimbabwe where before colonization, my family lineage were royalty. My grandmother was the last princess in that particular region. There were particular rituals and practices specifically for them that when people would come to their particular area, they had praise poems specifically for their royal positions. And that's part of me. But also more recently, I'm part of a higher echelon of, in terms of on a social level, a higher class in Zimbabwe. Like I never grew up lower class. And so that's not the upbringing that I came from. And that's Africa. Like my parents were hanging out with government officials, diplomats. Like that was we had housemaids and gardeners and chauffeurs, and that was my existence. It wasn't until we came to Australia that I actually realised blackness was a point of difference, and it was not a desirable point of difference. And then we became lower class due to a whole range of factors. And so I came from knowing a particular lifestyle to a completely different lifestyle. Landed in Frankston. We were living there was me, my younger sisters, my older brother, my mum and dad. We were living in a 2-bedroom flat in Frankston while my dad finished his PhD. and my mum was looking for work because her primary school degree was not recognised in this country. We were literally lining up for canned beans at the Salvos for clothes. Yeah, so my life completely switched and my positionality switched. And that's what I love about my relationship with you, Jen, is like it's about the nuances. It's about not going white woman, black woman. It's like, okay, but what is the context that you're existing in? Are you willing as a spirit, as a human, as a being to evolve and learn, unlearn? Who are you as you? Encompassing all those intersections, not denying them, but moving through them. And I think our relationship has evolved so much over the last 3 years through the difficult conversations, but also I think also holding the deep connection that we have and respect we have for each other as humans.
I want to ask you about your childhood growing up in Australia because I know that you were ostracised. Can you speak on how it was to be a black girl surrounded by white students?
So interesting again, because how I've previously told this story was always like from the place of victimhood. But I actually want to balance it out now.
Okay.
And give a fuller, more nuanced picture of growing up as a black girl in Frankston. So as I mentioned before, I came from a really affluent background. When we came to Australia, I learned for the first time actually that I had black skin.
Yeah.
I never even thought of my skin as a colour.
Yeah.
I just was.
Yeah.
And it was the kids on the block who, again, like, have inherited racism in their bodies. So they're reenacting something that their parents have taught them and that they've learned from their parents and that they've learned from their parents. So it's an ongoing intergenerational passing on of racism. And so the kids who I used to hang out with initially when I first came to Australia wouldn't let me play with them unless I did these rituals, customs, like they would all urinate in a bottle and then make me drink it and then I could play with them. Or they'll yank my braids as a game, but that really hurt. Or kiss chasey, like I would never be kissable because I'm not actually looked at as a woman. I'm just black or a girl. Yeah, being picked in terms of even if I'm good at something like sport or not being picked just because I'm not the popular or the desired thing. It made me a little bit... It started to shrink my greatness and my because I used to love my skin and I used to think I could be anything. That's what my dad told me. You can be anything, Tariro. You can be anything.
Because he knew that you'd need that strength moving forward.
Yeah, but he also knew that you have to be better than. You have to go the extra yards to even get a chance inside the wall of the zone of existing, the zone of success, to even have a chance. I have to know that I'm great and I have to work hard. And then because they're both colonized by the British in Zimbabwe, my mum's version of beauty was always light skin. And so she said, Tariro, you're not very beautiful, but you have a brain. And that impacted me. So I grew up thinking I'm ugly. The kids that I'm with, predominantly, not all of them, reenacted anti-blackness. Like I was not beautiful. And so that had an effect on me. But at the same time, I did have friends who just loved my skin, who loved me for who I am. There were kids who, for my sense of humour, like for my playfulness, just for the unique sparkle of light that I am.
Yeah.
There were those kids too.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, because even as kids, we become so colonised and the kids unfortunately became so supremacist. They were like, again, like for them, I remember there was this one kid who was like, Tariro, I don't see your colour. I just see you as my friend. Again, it's an erasure of the reality. But for them, they were thinking that this was the way of being inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's actually where I was.
And that superiority is going, I am neutral.
Yeah.
I am the universal.
Yeah.
And I'm opening the doors so you can come in.
Yeah.
But it's like, I don't need your permission,
Yeah.
actually, because I have my own key
Yeah.
and I have my own doors
Yeah.
because I am existing as a human.
And I am amazing.
And I'm amazing.
Yeah.
So I actually don't need your permission. And that's a little kid.
Yeah.
But that's existing on so many levels, state level, national level, global level, community level, like
Family level.
And so, yeah, I think being a black girl growing up, I ended up being addicted to studies. I was like,
Getting validated through being good at...
feeling the pressure that I have to be better than other kids, so I have to work hard. That was drummed in me young. And so I did end up being usually one of the top of the class. And I remember I used to be good at track and field and running, but I was never super good at long distance. And I was really good at short distance running. And if I'd lost, there was a sense of failure because my black body was meant to be superior into like physically. And I always, even as a little kid, I felt failure. Like I was not a good black kid because I didn't win that particular race.
You move in such a slow rhythmic pace through the world.
I think I also have the boom 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 boom, the I think the physical strength. I noticed like in my exercise routine that actually incorporates sprinting.
We've never exercised together.
No, but that is part of what I need to do. I need to sprint 3 times. Like, so it's like 300 meters to feel alive as well as the slow flow. Like I think it's in tandem, like it's together.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's it. That's the masculine and feminine energy existing in one body.
Yeah, right.
And I think for a long time I was existing in this flow state and not really acknowledging my masculine, which is the energy for action and the energy of doing.
And that's the energy that I see, when you're talking about work now, you know?
Yeah.
And that's new.
Yeah, I've reignited it.
Yeah, beautiful. Whereas I feel like I've existed a lot in that energy for the last long while.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of moving towards the slower pace now.
Yeah, balance. Yeah. It's all, because we're all on a different journey.
Yeah. We met in Melbourne. I was casting you in my series Sisters, and we met, and when we met, I saw you scoping me, checking me out, trying to figure out who I was. And there was, obviously you were guarded. I saw that. And then you said yes to the role and you came up here and you stayed with me. And I think the fact that, and we didn't know each other. We met for like an hour in a cafe and you flew up and you stayed with me. And during that production, I was in a pretty bad place. It was a very difficult production just because I didn't have the support I needed. Like it was just so much. But the thing was that you were the one that carried me through that. And so when you see your character and my character in that series, that is the camera capturing us, you know? And that's what was so beautiful about that series and so beautiful about us is I think by you coming up and you seeing me struggle, that kind of built a connection that was kind of unshakable because you saw me in my weaknesses straight up. It was complete transparency from the get-go. And I think that complete transparency, you seeing me in that way, in my vulnerability, allowed you to share your vulnerability with me and the trust was just there. Do you agree? Do you think that's...
Yeah, it's funny how life works in that way. I think it's interesting that actually you had cast, I think, different people in the role that I ended up playing. And for whatever reason, it didn't work out and that somebody recommended me. And that actually the character that I was playing and the character you were playing, which was like so you were playing a very airy kind of character and I was playing a very watery kind of character. Yeah, and I felt like that became kind of the nature of the connection.
Yeah.
Was really, I think water is a container. Water holds.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of my, I'd say, superpowers is ability to be able to hold.
Absolutely.
When I can, like when I'm in a position to, and I was in a position to.
Yeah.
And also, you know, and I speak about this a lot, like I really believe in the spirit of reciprocity. Like if it doesn't feel like an equal exchange, then it's problematic. The dynamic is off. Yeah. It's not balanced. Yeah. So I feel like I was also getting something from the get-go. As a black woman in this country, as a dark-skinned black woman in this country, I wasn't getting enough opportunities to be on screen. And for me that was, and you saw my poetry as well. And it was actually quite interesting where we met. It was this converted train station or tram
carriage, yeah.
Tram carriage.
Yeah.
Which also for me, I'm like, as a symbol and metaphor about what the tram or carriage represents in terms of movement, in terms of it's going somewhere. It was very interesting, and then feeling your spirit and what you're about, and actually the intent behind your work, and actually you had thought about everything on every level. It wasn't a wishy-washy script. You had like everything had symbology. And so that's why I was like, that's why I said yes. I was like, actually, this woman knows exactly what she wants to write about, knows exactly who she wants to play each particular role, knows who her audience is, and has a drive and a passion to her that I can recognise in myself. Yes, I will definitely be part of this.
And you actually turned out, probably in the feedback that I've gotten, and we haven't got enough people to watch it, but in the feedback that I've gotten, you have probably been the most favourite character. People have just loved to just watch you. You're so just real, just so transparent, and so deeply soulful. Like, we were taking photos of you the other day, and there's just such a deep, soulful presence to you, which really lends itself to the screen. Yeah, and it was just so beautiful. So thanks for being a part of it.
Yeah, and that's what I loved as well. You went, actually, the way I've written Sasha, actually, that's not actually now who I want her to be. I actually want her to have more essences of who you are. And I just really appreciated that. Like, so I was able to actually showcase not just my acting talent, but also my spoken word poetry talent as well. And I just felt really like seen by a white woman. You know what I mean? Like, you gave me that opportunity. And so that's where it's like nuance. It was multifaceted, which is why this idea of black-white in really kind of generalized ways, for me, is just perpetuating the same stereotypes and the same level of not meeting each other because we're not looking at what is lying beneath all that.
So T, when I am speaking to people about my work, and, you know, I do say the words white and black, I'm always told specifically by white people not to use those words. And they ask me, why do I have to politicize it?
Right.
But I guess from what I've learned, it's important to be specific about race and to be specific about all the details when you're talking about this stuff. Is this right, or can you explain?
In terms of positionality, we know what it is to be women in what is a misogynistic and what is a patriarchal society, though that is changing, and we can see that through the Me Too movement. We can see that recently in Canberra, what's happening with these allegations, we can see that there is a movement there. And so I think the danger in not being specific in going black woman, white woman, but even more nuanced than that is that we fall into the trap going, oh, every woman's experience is exactly the same.
And then the white woman sits at the top still with all the power.
Right.
And any person of colour or minority, their voice is still not heard in the way it needs to be.
Yeah, and it was interesting. Yesterday I was having this conversation as well in terms of minorities and marginalised peoples, whether that is being part of queer communities, whether that's race, whether that's gender, whether that's disability, that there's this really false idea, mythology, that we exist, if there's a pie chart, that we exist only in one little slice of that pie. And what that does is make us fight and scramble for our cause, our experience of injustice, rather than band together and go, actually, the pie chart is false. Like, we do not have to fight, actually. We can stand in solidarity in all our intersections and go, how can we create a more inclusive society where some of those sort of marginalised groupings can exist in one body?
Yeah.
And that we can actually all be able and allowed to exist as we want to exist.
As we are.
As we are, yeah.
Yeah. So in me introducing you, it's important for us to recognise that I am white and you are black, because that's how this country as it is was created. It's like, you look like that, so you go over there. You look like that, so you stand over there.
Absolutely. Like, I was having the most beautiful, nourishing relationship with one of my friends who I met at a arts therapy institution, and we were just unpacking that experience, which was actually, so many positive moments and also so many challenging moments too. And one of the things while I was there was that majority of the participants in the program were white women. And one of the things that she said to me was, when I started unpacking race, I actually realised that what I was doing was erasing your identity.
Yeah.
Because I was just looking at you as, well, yeah, she's black, but more importantly, she's my friend.
Yeah.
And she's just like me.
Yeah.
And I was actually totally overlooking your positionality.
Yeah.
And not only was that like a oversight, but it also was harmful. Like, it hurt you. And I apologize for all the times that I hurt you. And it just made me cry.
Amazing.
To hear someone be that self-reflective. And then she also went on to say, I'm going to mess up. That's what it is. Like, this is the body that I exist in. I am going to mess up. So I apologize for the times I will continue to harm you and hurt you, but please tell me.
Yeah.
And I had actually never heard anyone say that to me. And so it was so beautiful, and I realized how actually important it was for that to be named.
Yeah. Does that feel like that's been rare through your life in Australia, to feel seen by the white majority?
You know, I think that's a really difficult question to answer, because partly I think my experience as a black girl growing up in Frankston was coloured by race. And so all my dynamics and all my interactions became about race. And so even for myself, I internalized that. And so that was my lens too, was like, oh, if I get that part, it's because I'm black. If they're my friend, it's because I'm black. It stopped being me looking at myself in the nuance. I boxed myself mentally as well. And so every single interaction, she's looking at me on the tram or on the train because I'm black. So it's really hard to go, where is it me that has just seen it through purely the lens of race? Where has it been the system? And where has it been people labeling me,
Yeah.
I think it becomes really blurry.
Yeah.
So where I am now, when I'm just like unpacking all that,
Yeah.
I actually see that there are moments when it's been me.
Yeah.
And actually I have overlooked the fact that people have actually just genuinely wanted to be around me because I am Tariro, who is a black woman and also a woman that is intelligent, and also a woman that is cheeky and humorous, and also a woman that's playful, like all those nuances. Yeah, I think I have missed those opportunities of recognizing when people have actually really seen me. It's not until I've become obsessed and addicted to the commitment of loving myself and understanding who I am that I've actually been able to go, oh, actually in that moment, that person actually just really loved me for me.
I was speaking to Aminata, and she very clearly sees when people are looking at her purely based on how she looks. She says that, you know, people look at her and her colleagues and they think that she's lucky as a black woman to have these wonderful white women around her and helping her create this amazing, incredible nonprofit that she's creating. But really, like, she's now taken ownership and she's like, no, they're lucky. They're lucky to be working with me because I'm incredible. What I'm doing is incredible. This nonprofit is incredible. So let's change that thinking. And she actively does begin the conversation with people who have that perception. And a lot of times she said there's denial that comes back at her. Oh, it's not what I meant. And she's like, no, but it is what you meant because you don't understand. I'm here trying to tell you this is how you're reading it, but you're reading it wrong because I'm amazing and you're looking at me as a victim. I am not a victim. I'm in my power. I'm a powerful woman. I am changing the world. I am saving lives in Sierra Leone. This is me and they're working with me. So who's lucky?
Yes, exactly. That's true for my experience too.
Yeah.
And Aminata is incredible. And I can relate to that in terms of my role and responsibility as co-artistic director and co-CEO of Western Edge Youth Arts in Melbourne. So my co-artistic director and co-CEO is a white woman, Penny Harpham. And I could see that when that happens in meetings. Like when we're having meetings with people who, you know, are potential stakeholders, potential funders, and they look at me and go, wow, you know, 10, 15 years ago, you would not have had this opportunity. You're really lucky.
Wow.
And it's that exact same thing. It's like, actually, I've had to work extra hard for me to be here.
I am amazing.
I'm amazing. That is why I'm here.
Yeah.
It's not because I'm lucky.
Yeah.
It's because I have had to work double as hard. I've actually earned my place to be here. You are lucky to be in the same space as me, actually. Is really clear in those moments as well. And sometimes it's not even said. Sometimes you can just feel it.
You can feel it. For me, I'm obviously, it's not that, but me being a young, ambitious filmmaker, being blonde, whatever, in a room with men, I'm constantly overlooked. No, I'm a businesswoman. I make films. I have a whole team. I'm running this thing. How about a little respect? You know, how about see me for me? See me for what I've done. See me for what I've accomplished. See me for my strength. Not see me because, oh, I look a certain way and oh, that's cute. No, not interested.
Oh, and also acknowledge that, yes, I'm an attractive woman. I happen to be blonde. And the nuances of that, I'm extremely hardworking. I'm talented. I'm da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Like, hold me in all of that.
Yeah.
And often that response is about them. It's about them trying to hold on to a sense of power that is false and fake because it is not including the person in their holisticness.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. That's why I call it fake power.
Yeah. I guess this is a question I did want to ask you. It kind of bridges right now. So you and I have this most beautiful friendship and always have since we met after like an hour or whatever. A lot of Black women that I have come into contact with are unable to connect with me in that way. I feel like I'm always coming with good intentions and I'm always coming to share high energy, good energy. And, I've been in relationships with people and in the UK, in the US, here. One experience, like I was in Los Angeles and my boyfriend and I went to a party and he was Black and we walked into the house and we went into the kitchen and could hear everybody having an amazing time. The moment he brought me into the kitchen, dead silence. Icy, icy cold silence. And so I had to be taken out and stand out the back at the barbecue and I had to stay out there because I wasn't welcome just because I'm white, a white girl. So, there's been so many experiences like that. So it's like, how do we break that down,
I think, and we have these conversations quite a bit.
We do. I have deep compassion for non-white women's places in the world because white women have been put on the pedestal to the detriment of every other kind of woman in the world.
Yeah, and also the continuity of colonization as well has been that the white woman's role, which White Tears, Brown Scars speaks to, is that the role of white woman today in contemporary modern world is upholding this morality, this universal morality over any other woman. Yeah, and I think it's important to also contextualize the kind of experience you're talking about in LA, that you had in LA, within the global historical context. White imperialism and Western European colonization was actually borrowed. It wasn't a thing that started in Western Europe. It actually, like slavery, started in the Middle East. We've got to kind of contextualize and just kind of see that before race was a thing, which was actually really tied to economic capitalism and industrialization. Race wasn't a thing before then. It was race was the marker of difference. Middle Eastern slavery was around religion, not really race. When we bring it to race, it's like slavery was created in that way so that Black people could work for free labour on plantations to produce products that would be for white people. And so the white man was at the head. And so they would marry white women. This is, I'm talking now in the kind of, I'm going to be a bit African or just like American-centric right now, and go, white men used to rape Black women. White women used to see their men, would know that their men were raping Black women and having children. So already there's an intergenerational conflict and tension between white women and Black women. And also, Black love has been continuously eroded in a historical, societal context. And so when a white woman enters the space, it's not surprising for me for that to be a point of tension because there's a lot of unnames and elephants in the room that are in real time happening, but we're not actually talking about on a public scale. And Australia's nowhere near, in terms of public discourse, having the level of in-depth conversations we need to have in order for us to detangle all these complexities that are coexisting today. And then what happens is I think it's important to acknowledge then minority, like I said earlier in the pie, in terms of using the pie chart as an example, is that we're all bottled into this like one slice of this pie as minority. And the first person to be pulled out of that minority is a white woman. And so there's still a continuous line of oppression there and not equal opportunity there. And then what happens is that because white man is still essentially running the world, the white woman goes, hey, I feel like it's my right to be given opportunities. what? I've been waiting such a long time to have the same opportunities as a white man. Now I've got to fight for the thing that I've really wanted for such a long time with every other minority. Then there's bitterness there. And then vice versa.
I've never thought of that.
If it's not bitterness, it's fear. Like, I mean, I've had these conversations with my white friends, like in terms of if I'm wanting equality and I'm wanting equal opportunity for myself and being able to do everything that I want to do as a white woman, I'm seeing that men of colour are having positions that are higher than me. I'm seeing women of colour having positions that are higher than me. I'm seeing queer people. I'm seeing people with disabilities. I'm getting left behind. Where is my place in the new world?
I've never felt that.
That's interesting.
I've never.
Yeah, that's the conversations I'm having with my white women friends.
Wow, they feel that way. I don't.
How do you feel?
I just want us all to be on the same level. I just want to bring us all up together. So, and I don't want to bring white men under us. I want to bring us all up together to exist together because we are all interconnected. And for this land and for the world, for our society, for the environment to be at its healthiest, we all need to be working together in the most healthy way possible. You know, so that means bringing everybody up so we can all coexist.
Yeah, and I think that is my ideal as well.
Yeah.
But I think that in terms of what is happening in reality, that's not what it is. It's like most positions that white men give are to white women, and then everyone else is scrambling for some of that.
Yeah, right.
Because I can see that there is now a movement to kind of elevate others as well.
Yeah.
And they're going, oh, well, where do I sit in that?
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't want to fight for my place.
Yeah.
I feel like I've earned it.
Yeah, I guess I feel like I have my place. Everybody has their place. Everybody has their own journey in their own place, and nobody's ever going to take that away from them. So there's trust there. So I trust in the universe that we're all going to be traveling our own journeys. And we've actually had conversations about that, you know, about your path is your path. And what my path and what my journey is completely independent of you and your journey. And we can travel together and experience and do amazing things together. But your path is solely your path. And I don't have an impact on that. You know?
Yeah, and then we're speaking now on a spiritual level versus a systemic level that we're living in.
Yeah, right.
And the realities of the systemic, like you've got to go outside of that system to have that belief pattern.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I exist, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The structural system is a European, Western European colonial structure.
Yeah.
And so some bodies that look like me have to somehow lose parts of themselves to integrate into that system at the same time as creating parallel and alternative systems that are more inclusive that can then feed into the existing system to try and influence that and impact on that system in a more positive manner.
Like as a filmmaker, I'm very independent and I create based on information that I am given from the powers above, and that's information that I think it goes against the grain, you know, because I do want to elevate all of us together. So I think I hope I am actively partaking in creating new systems and breaking down the old through what I do.
Yeah.
You know?
We all, I think, no matter where you are positioned, like need to kind of jump on that vision and not make it just a vision, but like really be living that, making that a lifestyle thing. Like, and that's like the daily work. That's like, because you are reading a lot. You are having the difficult conversations and you can't kind of bypass that. You've got to do the work in order for that to be a reality for everybody. And I think that's where on a systemic level where there's a difference between equality and equity. Because on a spiritual level, definitely we are all equal.
Yeah.
But on a systemic level, there's got to be equity. There's got to be like, who are the people at the bottom of the rung? And that is actually, I think, women of colour or trans or non-binary people of colour with disabilities who are at the bottom and going, we need to elevate their voice because actually we can learn a whole lot. And that we've got to start thinking in that kind of decolonial way, which is what you're talking about, not actually putting down the white man, but going, hey, like...
Can I tell you something? Can I teach you something?
Yeah, going like, hey, like you've been in a position of universality and neutrality for so long, but that's a falsity as well. Like, in a way, a white man has to relinquish power because it's too much power. It's actually killing and destroying the world. Like it's an imbalance of power.
Including themselves.
Yeah.
You know? Greed, corruption, all of those things.
Exactly. There are white men that I'm having conversations with. We're having these conversations about the importance of giving the key and opening the doors and giving over resources because that's balancing things out. But at the same time, having conversations with people of colour as well and going, well, it's time to get yours. Like, get out of, like, slavery mentality, get out of starvation mentality. It is time for you to claim your space and know your worth.
Stand in your power.
Yeah, and start to elevate yourself too. Don't just wait for other people to be giving you the key. Freaking create your own key.
Yeah. So how do they do that? How would you break that down, that process of shifting away from victimhood, is that the word?
Yeah.
Into power?
I would say that there's a mass revival. There's a mass movement amongst brown and black people who are totally committed to and doing that. And I think in a way social media like can be a negative, but it can also be a real positive.
It can.
And I think there's been platforms that exist, especially digitally, that enable brown and black peoples to be entrepreneurs and to create businesses and systems where there's platforms for shared knowledge, shared resources, supporting each other, affirming each other, celebrating each other so that we are raising our vibration and we are carving the path that we want to be the best version of ourselves. Alongside, in tandem with also the system recognising that it's about balance. It's about relinquishing too much power because as we can see, I think COVID has been the perfect example of what happens when we are really not balanced, when we are in a war mentality, when we are in a greed, like as you said, greed and power dynamic, and that's what we want to hold on to. Like that's a falsity. Like trying to control is false. It's not about control. It's actually about surrender. It's actually about, and that's scary.
Yeah.
Because we're not taught from a young age to be collaborators.
Yeah.
And to and that there's enough for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think that's the shift. That's the paradigm shift that I can see is already happening on a cultural, on a social level.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, that's it for today's episode, but we have a surprise for you guys. Because T and I had so much to say, we're going to share another full episode with you all tomorrow that delves deeper into how we can heal the relationship between black and white women.
Being black right now is hot topic. It's hot property. It's like everybody is performing allyship and wants the black woman. And so it's like knowing who's being tokenistic and who's being inclusive.
Yeah. For more information on today's episode, please head to today's show notes, and to donate directly to T's organisation WEYA, please head over to thelovingpodcast.com and click on Tariro. We will see you tomorrow. Big love to you all.
The Loving Podcast is a One Love Films original podcast. It is recorded at Forbes Street Studios, Woolloomooloo by Charlotte Rochecouste and Nicholas Rowse. Our editors are Zoltan Fecso and Jenna Hayes. Our music is composed by Jenna Pratt and guitarist Joshua Gonzalez. Podcast photography and cover art is created by Sarah Fountain. Our behind-the-scenes photographers/videographers are Danielle Mazzucci, Barnaby Downs, Paul King and Ryan Andrew Lee. Our podcast imagery is created at Innkeeper Studios. I am your narrator, Victoria Jane Hind, and our producer is Jenna Hayes.